Now, to restring a Floyd, there's a couple tricks. The first is to do the 1-for-1 method. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You take one string off and you put it on. But what I want you to realize is that as soon as you take off a string, there are 6 strings pulling on this bridge. And on the bottom of the bridge, there are 3 springs pulling the other direction. So the problem is that once one of these 2 things become out of balance, you're going to have a mess. So what I use is the Shredneck TremBlock. It's just a piece of plastic that goes there, and that's perfect. I love this thing. I've been using it forever. I've gone through a couple of them over the years. Do you need this? Absolutely not. In fact, that's what they make junk mail for. Take junk mail and same thing. Fold it in half. Same thing. Now, strings are all loose. That's what I want you to do before you go ahead and take any of the strings off. Now what you want to take is a 3mm Allen wrench. I'm going to use an Allen driver, which is this. And let's go ahead and take the low E string off. Just undo the block from this side. The one thing you have to be aware of is that there's a little block in there and it's just held in there by this post and it can fall out. So you either want to screw the post back or put a piece of painter's tape over the top. But this is the more important thing. The block looks like this, so you can see it's pretty small, but it has a hole drilled into it right there. And the issue is if that post doesn't go in there perfectly, it could touch the sides or crack and damage this post. And if you lose this or if it's damaged, you're going to have to get a new set. So be aware of these. And they're very cheap and they're brittle. You guys are going to have a 3mm Allen wrench right here. What I have is the tone vise, which is this right here, and I just go ahead and use it like a mechanism. And look at that, it's pretty awesome. You can see how you lift this up and it works just by unlocking it. Most of you are not going to have a tone vise system, so you're just going to use the actual Allen screw and go ahead and just take this off. I always remove it. Some people just loosen it and run the string underneath it, but I just take one off at a time. Okay, so we're going to get the new string, and what you're going to notice is you're not going to need the ball end. So we can go ahead and just cut that off. I go about 1 inch down from the top. Pretty straightforward. Now we'll just insert it back into the locking mechanism. Now this is a really big part of a Floyd Rose restring. How much torque, how much force do you use to screw this back together? And the problem is that you understand you can strip these and break these and crack these. Just think of it this way, if you're squeezing your hand too hard, you're putting too much force. So you should be able to tighten this with very little to no force. Now we'll just run the string through. I use 3 fingers right here. That's how I measure how much of a wrap I'm going to need. And go ahead and wind the string. Once you have the string wrapped, go ahead and put the locking mechanism back on, but do not lock it back down yet. Now, once you put the string back on, what you want to do is just put it a little tight. Don't worry about tuning it yet, and stretch it. And there's a couple ways to stretch it. I just go ahead and just pull up a little bit. Some people move side to side like this. Either way, just tug on a little bit. That also makes sure that it's seated correctly in this spot, because that's another thing that happens, they come unseated. Now here's the trick. While the bridge is not pulling back on the strings, this is what I want you to do. I want you to wiggle each string, like so, and make this string feel the same. So using the tuning key up top, go ahead and just find a spot. Get in tune with it. Like I said, you don't always have to use your ear. Use your other senses. And these feel almost the same to me, almost. Like I said, this one, this one just a little bit more. I know you can't feel them right now, but you can see them. And you can see, and especially if you move, it still feels pretty stiff. Go ahead. Okay, that feels good. So let's go ahead, push the whammy bar down, take the block out. Look at that. Now, that is a fast way to restring it. And then you're going to do each string that way. Again, using the feeling of it, you'll get close. Now, are we perfectly in tune? No, no, no. But we're close enough where we can lock this down and then fine tune it on this side. I know what you're thinking, but what if you're starting from scratch? What if you can't do 1-for-1 and you're missing all the strings, or the bridge is just so out of whack the guitar is not in tune? Well, two things. First, I want to remind you there's a video right there that is how to live with your Floyd Rose if you hate it. And that's a great way to show you how to block a Floyd Rose. But in this case, we're going to show you how to quickly set up the entire bridge, tuning it from scratch. First thing you want to do is make sure the bridge is flush. And we can do that by using the actual tremolo arm to hold it in the perfect position. Now, while you're holding the bridge perfectly flush, go ahead and measure the distance between the back of this piece of wood and the bridge itself. I'm going to go ahead and use a caliper. And we have 5.25 millimeters. I'm just going to go ahead and lock that. You can use coins, you can use anything. I'm going to use a bunch of cheap guitar picks. I just have a big giant bowl of cheap picks. There you go. Now, in this case, we're going to remove one pick, and here's why. Because we're going to use some electrical tape. Just super easy. I like to hold them all in the same direction and wrap the tape as tight as I can. I'm not looking for perfection here. Let's go ahead and see how much we added to this. Look at that. And perfect. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and drop this right into there. Okay. And now the bridge has something to go the back on. Oops. Now we'll take a screwdriver, and what we want to do is bring the bridge against all of those picks. There we go. Now that the bridge is being pulled against the picks, go ahead and tune the guitar up. Now it's important that we unlock these now. Okay. Okay, so now the guitar is all tuned up. Go ahead and lock the locking nut down. Just a word of caution, you want to make sure your fine adjusters have enough play to go sharp and flat. I like to set them pretty much in the center. Now all you have to do is take these two screws and go at a quarter turn at a time. You'll continue to release these screws until the picks are released from the clamp that they've been put into and the strings are still in tune. Okay, and once you're there, use the whammy bar to push down and use your fingers to fish out the block you made. And now the guitar will be in tune, but you may want to use your fine tuners to adjust it just a little bit at a time. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and maybe even share it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you can go ahead and subscribe. And as always, I'd like to take a second to thank the patrons for making these videos possible every week. And as always, thank you so much for your time, and know your gear.